This is the Business Chat Podcast. Welcome to the Business Chat. Again, I'm your host, Drew, and I'm joined today by David Franklin. David is founder and CEO of knowRX. He is an entrepreneur, a CEO, a veteran, technologist, and he's my guest today as the innovator in your industry, David, digital health. How's it going, David?
Very good, Drew. It's a pleasure to be here today and great to reconnect with you.
Yeah, man. Excellent. Well, we were talking before the show and getting kind of caught up on some of the things you've been doing, which is always a struggle because you're doing so many things. I can't stay caught up. So since we booked this and and talking today, there's already news and things going on. But in the short 30 minutes I have with you today, I hope to give you the opportunity to tell everybody what you have going on as an innovator. What is innovative about you and about your brand and your platforms in the marketplace? And I'm excited to have you on the show today, man. We were looking over the site, talking over kind of just the things that are going on with knowRX, which folks can see from the title of the episode and see that is the brand. And we'll drill in here for a minute. Correct me if I'm wrong or if this already has changed, but knowRX, it says on your site, provides smart, inclusive health research by delivering clinical trial recruitment solutions that are inclusive, expeditious, and cost efficient. I love that. It's packed full of a lot. And I know the developed technologies you've put out there, we've discussed, such as EPCARE, more on the B2B side, and of course the OWL app, which again, congratulations, man, getting that published and seeing the feedback. So again, welcome to the show. Tell me a little bit about those platforms, about what else is going on, maybe what I missed that knowRX is doing. I want to hear what you've been up to.
Yeah, thank you. So what's really important here is where this comes from. It's more than technology, it's passion, right? It's more than outcomes, it's purpose. And for me, this really started, one can transverse back to say, how did you get to this point? Well, really, in some ways, it started in my military career, learning how to be a solution architect, working in communications, through the Gulf War, through submarine communications, surface communications. Then the Navy really teaching me how to put together circuits, what we call circuits. Now it's, applications and digital and different things like that. But my start started in the military, not just from a technical standpoint, but from a focus and mindset of giving back to community, because the Navy was very strong at commitment to the community, along with country and just the service people as well. But in 2018, I lost my father due to a medication side effect while in the ICU. And after this time, well, even during that 6 months or 6 weeks, and it was only over a 6-week period to where he was fully able to respond, talk, sit up, eat on his own, in the life situation. But in this time, you sleep in the waiting rooms. You have a lot of interaction with the attendees, the staff, and you start to learn a lot of things, and you see a lot of patterns. And I remember telling my mom, walking out one day, that I need to help address some of these situations that I'm seeing. Shortly after that, my father would pass away, and I took a couple months off from my cloud computing business and decided to start sunsetting it and form knowRX, which is knowledge about prescriptions. The KNOW is abbreviation for knowledge in the RX prescriptions. I reached out to a long-time friend and colleague that I've known for about 10 years, Dr. James Powell. It's a biopharmaceutical research physician, and knowRX was formed. Now, like all of us, we've gone through a pandemic and continue to have the backside impacts of that. As a technology company, you have to be innovative, creative. You have to look for ways really for survival, especially as an early stage company. So we listened to what was happening in the ecosystem relative to the pandemic. We saw where there were spots of entry for us, and that's what really generated the mobile application as well. So over this time, we did a lot of data analytics, machine learning, procuring data. But in the essence, we have a marketplace application, one that does identify providers and patients for new clinical research opportunities. The importance here is that, unlike traditional research recruitment, as they call it recruitment, we call it engagement. The difference is we give into a community, they pull from a community. Recruitment, to me, pulls, engagement gives back, and it's more bidirectional. So we're very strong on distinguishing the differences there. But 76% of patients said that they would consider clinical research is part of their care plan if it came through their trusted provider. And quite frankly, how marketing is done today, it's still done on paper, still done on banners, and they're moving digital, but it doesn't go through the provider. Well, we have a very large provider network, almost 1 million providers across the U.S., that we can quickly identify based off disease categories and present them with information to share with their patients as new therapy options.
Sure. Man, that's incredible. So, I mean, you're diving right into my first question about not only the what was the passion, the story, getting into this, and again, it's no secret. I tell folks as they're watching the show, to our listening audience, folks that are subscribing, they know there's no secret. I know some of y'all, David and I, have history go back, and I remember talking with you, friend, during that difficult time and that transition, seeing your mindset, seeing your passion. But it is worth noting. There's no understating how this is personal for you. Before we go any further, too, David, and thanks again, man. I love that you're able to concisely, kind of succinctly lay it out. Let's do the virtual cheers. Welcome again to kind of my living room to the show today, and we'll go ahead and get that in there. Cheers to you, my friend. Yeah. What are you drinking today, David? That's a dark brew right there.
It is. It's almost like a cranberry of color. So to balance out work life, I actually grow hibiscus plants, and the flowers, the blooms.
Of course you do. Yes. I love it.
Yeah. Once you dry those out, you can make hibiscus tea or Jamaica, boil the plants, the flowers, and then you get this phenomenal tea from it. So just being creative, innovative, I brew my own. So.
First guest to bring their own brew. That's great. I've got a Blake's hard cider. They're out here in Michigan. I was telling you before the show, this is not my typical forte to be drinking anything sweet like this. In fact, I'd planned for a coffee beverage, but a friend of mine had been bragging about their apple cider. And as I'm getting used to the great state of Michigan, they do apples. They do lots of apples, lots of cider, and the hard cider and the cider, the apple orchards and farms is, it's a big part of the central and northern part of the state. So to Blake's and their caramel apple cider, I would say this is unusually refreshing, and it's not like a mouthful of candy like I'm used to with ciders or some sour nasty things. So, well, cool, man. We'll welcome to you and your Jamaica tea. And as you were talking about earlier, this idea of you being able to really, you're connecting, and you said it so well, but I think for a lot of dummies listening, like myself, or just the listening audience on LinkedIn that goes, yeah, we understand from a high level the healthcare terms David's talking about, but we talked before the show about you being in digital health and how that's worth pointing out, aside from being in the healthcare industry. Does that relate to kind of what you said, David, about being, you're really pointed about these terms, and you're really specific about, like you said, recruitment and the different ways you engage when you guys are talking about these clinical trials? I want to understand a little bit more and have the audience kind of understand as you slow down and zoom in on that with me. What is digital health to you, and what are you again doing? Say that again, if you will, what you guys are focusing on.
Well, I think healthcare is one industry segment that's lagging from a technology point of view.
Right.
So as it goes through its digital transformation, what's very important to us is that the patient is no longer on the outside of the equation. The patient is very much a part of the digital transformation. Why? We have to meet the patient where they're at, which is mobile, and from a technology company. And we want to be known as a patient-first platform. Everything we do is around empowering the patient through education, engagement, and involvement, giving the patient the availability to say, yes, I want to share my information. Yes, I will respond to this survey. At the same time, giving them enough information to have better conversations with their physicians, as a caregiver, maybe within their family. So it's very important that we start digital health transformation. Digital health has the patient, the consumer patient in mind always, and that should be the primary focus of all healthcare systems. It's the patient.
Do you feel, yeah, and I agree, and I hear what you're saying, and I know we've talked again about this, and as I'm trying to find areas that you don't become a silo between you and I, and an assumed understood to folks listening, are you saying in a sense as well, in addition to what you just said, that the pandemic also kind of accelerated and pushed on this reality that everyone woke up and said, okay, we knew healthcare was lagging, but oh my goodness, it's so evident now these little startup technologies are pushing and proving the point. Would you agree that, yeah, it was overwhelmingly evident during the pandemic?
That's a great view and perception and question. The primary technology that came out of the pandemic was telehealth. Mm-hmm. So what telehealth brings is affordability in a ease of use to engage with a healthcare provider. Mm-hmm. Where I'm at, in my home, on my job, in a conference room, I can have my physician's appointment right then. So it cuts down time. And again, it's right there where people are at. It doesn't replace the primary care provider. It doesn't replace going to the institution. It should complement these that are already in place. But also when you look at it from an age perspective, millennials and the younger generation, conceptually, they may not have a trending view of a trusted provider and going in a few times a year to that establishment. And out of convenience, it's easy to stop. Why drive 15 miles, 10 miles when right in the neighborhood is an urgent care or a clinic that you can go to?
Exactly.
So that was emerging technology that came out. On a side note, it's also amazing how the QR code made a comeback as well.
Isn't it funny?
Great.
It'd been on bar coasters forever. You'd scan it and then you'd get like 10%, or you could upload your little selfie to redbull.com and they'd feature you on Instagram. They kind of did it. It faded and all of a sudden QRs came back in the pandemic. Good point. That's a good point.
That's technology, but through the pandemic, from a health equity standpoint, what really came to spotlight and a focus on was health inequities, how the pandemic was impacting underrepresented, marginalized communities across the United States, even globally. And you figure it's not necessarily that COVID could identify a different demographic, one from another, but the historical misrepresentation and lack of care and understanding of these communities brought forth more visibility to where we have to concentrate more on leveling everything up. There's a statistic in clinical research. Nearly 80% of clinical trial data has insufficient data to prove safety or effectiveness in non-white participants. Now think about that. The outcome of clinical research is medications, for one example.
Sure.
So what's taking place is we're moving from, say, generalized medications, one pill fits all, if you will.
Right.
But the performance is different based off different groups, is more towards precision medicine. So medications is available to all, but they're not made for all. They're not made for all because there's lack of participation in data, right? The data doesn't support the science behind what the outcomes could be. Now there's challenges within these communities that has to be worked through. So you have to move from trust to being trustworthy. And these are the challenges that these institutions and providers and sponsors have.
Yeah, I can see that. And it's so incredibly complex, and it's got its own red tape around it to merely come in and say, hey, I'm David Franklin, I have an idea. And you know better than anybody, the time to go to market, the development cost and hours, the appearing before, powers that be to kind of pitch these concepts. Tell me a little bit about that. How's that path been, that road? I mean, without, being too specific, as you've engaged with a lot of professionals and entities alike, would you say that even within the technologist that goes, I've got a solution, I just need either the funding or the credibility kind of backing or both, does that still feel like kind of you're in a long line at Costco kind of thing? Or does it feel like you're hearing people a little more quickly because they go, yeah, we need more technologists coming? And is there kind of an audition stage, so to speak, for the Davids? Are you still having to try to pry open a back door? How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
We're just over 3.5 years. We'll be 4 years old in January. We rely a lot on relationships.
Yeah.
Relationship economics right now.
That's a great term. It's true.
Versus just knocking on doors cold, right? It's
Yeah.
who can be that advocate that brings us into a situation. Now, we've used accelerators like Techstars, Mass Challenge, Founders Institute that opens up more opportunities from VC funding, angel group funding, and just maturing as a business as well. And then we just rely on our internal network, going to events, going to where those buyers are, speaking to them. And you still have to go through that process to be onboarded as a vendor. So there's really no shortcuts, but there are, it's like Six Flags. There is a fast pass, so to speak, right?
Yes. Yes, exactly.
That can accelerate. Healthcare sales generally is 18 to 24 months. So it's a long sales cycle.
See, that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
You have to be able to endure that, or how do you condense it down? So we condense it down by going into pilots and doing a proof of concept that's a de-risk the engagement on a smaller scale. They see that, then that helps us accelerate afterwards.
Yeah, interesting. That's a great answer. And again, as a fan of yours and a guy that's observed, like any consumer, just how this stuff's changing, it's just interesting. Sometimes we see all this need that becomes obvious from, conversations in a Starbucks, professionals in technology, but then guys like you are at the front, able to truly give folks like us that don't get as far as you do, kind of a real reporter's look at here's really the reasons why. There's no mystique as to why these apps aren't flooding the market, these technologies and these changes to decentralize and to open up clinical trials and real data. There's real answers to why that's the case, and they're incredibly complex and they're cultural, and some of them have to do with regulation, and some of them are just flat out the right people with the right ideas don't have the money, and the ones that do are not focused on this kind of thing. So it is very innovative of you to be focusing on this, to be as patient as you are. And again, and I want to bring you back to this and ask you this next question. It seems as though, as I was looking at it, and I intentionally didn't want to question you much before this recording, EPCARE seems to strategically a little bit be sort of the back end, or rather the other approach to the OWL app. The OWL app, again, consumer focused, and we see it on the App Store, we see it on Google Play. It's getting feedback, and I've been able to experience it. EPCARE seems to be your response to go, hey, here's how we turn back to the physicians, we turn back to the institutions. Is that right? Am I saying that correctly?
Yeah. From a two-sided marketplace, or on one side, it's more B2B, engaging with pharmaceutical companies, providers, and payers. And on the other side, we're really working with patients, right? Somebody very important that's coming more important into this space are the pharmacists as well. So generally, there's 5 Ps. You got the pharmaceutical companies, you got payers, you got providers, healthcare providers, you got pharmacists, and you have patients. And this is where I was saying the patient has to be in the center, and you have sort of a 360 lens around that patient of how to provide care to that patient. But yes, EPCARE, in the middle between the two, we have a machine learning, we call it Maestro ML, that really orchestrates the exchange of information left to right, and balances out. So as a provider, as a patient, you're not receiving a lot of communications about every single thing out there. We want to groom it to where it's more personalized care, personalized messaging. As we get more data, we can do that. We have great partners like Harvard Health Publishing. So say if you put in a medication for simvastatin, which is high cholesterol, then you will start receiving information on the OWL app, how to live with high cholesterol, how to change your diet, the importance of walking, how to increase the fiber naturally, right? And you log your medicine and you have the schedule, and we're going to help you, nudge you, and take you through that medication schedule to make sure you understand the importance of taking it on time, the importance of taking it to completion, or if you have an adverse effect or a symptom, whether it's related to that or not, 'cause we may not know, we log it. So you have better conversations with your provider when you see them, or the provider can see it in near real time and make adjustments to the medicines.
Yeah, and kind of the completion to the thought here, and really one of the final questions I had for you, and that I just love kind of just hearing more about what you're observing, and the story here is that the OWL app really is kind of the physician's best friend, so to speak, in a sense that where they're looking to close the gap and meet and talk about, high value, data and talk with the patient. It's nice to have something like the OWL app that's essentially, unless I'm saying this wrong, the physician is getting the other piece, they're getting the information. And so when it's time for that, like you said, brick and mortar, drive up to the actual, physician, the healthcare rep themselves, and have the conversation, there's that much more data. That's much more of an efficient visit because they've got that on record as a person's making data entry. And yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. There's already a lot of data that's presented to providers, but here we call it decision intelligence. So they can make the right decision based off this digital intelligence, right? And make an actionable impact in your care, helping the providers stay connected to you between visits. Giving you, insights.
So give me an example, David. Sorry to cut in. I love this because this is when we had talked last. Let's say I start having, what's a common one? Seems like everyone has, some anxiety or stomach pain. The app, I would note that, right? I would say, I'm feeling a little upset stomach. I notice I'm anxious. And you're saying this AI, and kind of, again, without having to go on all the complication of Maestro and how it works, but it's going to tailor its suggestions and send that info back to my physician. Talk to me about that. I say I've got stomach pain. What does it look like for me after that?
Yeah. Not just the physician, but what we want to do is curate the knowledge information. Mm-hmm. So if you're on a medication that has a probability of anxiety or upset stomach, we're going to start providing you information like how to soothe an upset stomach or how to breathe mindfully if you're getting anxious, right? And so we'll start delivering that content to you.
Yeah.
But say you take your blood pressure. The blood pressure data goes into the application, so it's elevated. Your heart rate's elevated. Your blood pressure's off. The provider would be able to see that information in near real time, right? And be able to reach out, make adjustments, especially say if you've just been on a new medication for a few days. So here's a real life story.
Yeah,
I was in Boston, and being remote from Austin, I needed some medication. I had a gout flare up, and it was real strange, but I started taking this medication, and we digitized the pharmacy label. That's one thing we do. So you always have that label, which is very important. A lot of times the labels are misplaced. But one day, a few days later, I woke up, I felt nauseous, I was dizzy, had a headache, and I just thought the nauseous was from the headache and feeling dizzy.
Yeah.
So I didn't put a lot of weight into it. Mm-hmm. You get a headache, you may feel upset, have an upset stomach.
Pop an Advil, move on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So then I started feeling pain in my arm. I was like, wow, this is very different. I got several things going on here. Just so happened in my mailbox, I saw a new scientific study saying that you're more likely to have a heart issue within the first 2 months of having a gout flare up. So that piqued my interest. So I went back to the OWL app. I looked at the medication, looked at the drug label, and it says, caution, this medication could cause heart problems, right? And it started going through all the adverse effects. And it said headache, nausea, pain, and one side of the body, recommend seeing a doctor. So that in that scenario, I said, okay, I have too much information here to ignore it. I need to go to the clinic to be seen. And it was just a side effect from the medication. That's all it was, right? But having this level of intelligence and knowledge to have better conversations, to be able to report more accurately in real life. So when I go see my physician, I can say, here's this information. Yeah. Now, if the physician's using the back end EPCARE, they can see this in real time as well.
See, and that is without, I think, having to know your industry. And I couldn't speak for the 5 Ps, right? And in that side of behind that curtain. But from a consumer perspective, I feel like that's missing. At least my friends and I, colleagues, I don't hear about folks being able to get that kind of information. It's a shrug of the shoulders, and I don't know what it is, but booking either an appointment with my physician, especially during the pandemic, but especially now, it gets kind of an eye roll. Like, yeah, no, I'm going to figure this out myself, right? A lot of folks, you've seen this, David, they DIY, kind of hack the WebMD thing. They're trying to figure it out versus, like you said, something that not only is giving a AI information based off data, but connected to your physician who's seeing it, and then the potential relational feedback. That's incredible, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so when you have the provider and the patient there, and we have this intelligence going on within these two, then when a clinical trial comes into play, if there's alignment, right? So we'll go back to the simvastatin.
Yeah.
If the trial is looking for, say in my case, a Caucasian 50-year-old plus male that has a history of high cholesterol, I would get that communication. You wouldn't, because, you know, you're like 30 years old, Drew. So you wouldn't get that communications, right?
I wish.
But you see, we don't want to create noise. We want notifications, but not noise, and very meaningful notifications.
No, it's a good point. That's a great point. And I like that you are, again, everything you keep saying, and you know this, but it's just listening to you, it's worth letting you know, you are so focused on the consumer, on the patient, if you will, that I think that's really what part of your innovative, your distinctive, if that's a word, distinctive, if you're distinctive, lies anywhere. It's such a hyper focus on the reality of the individual, the patient, and their need to have this information, their need to be able to, be met with a digital solution is where they're at. And I think really at the end of this, you're bringing the information that's there, the knowledge that exists. Your story was great. That is a scenario that could have gone on for months, right, with somebody else, ignoring that pain, curious what it was, waiting for the appointment, where something like a quick couple clicks, it sounds like, of this app helping to kind of give you that information, potentially having your physician or their office reach out. It shortens, it sounds like, that cycle, right, from that time. And like you said, then it feeds into clinical trial data. It's great, man. Great story, man.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about some other stuff in our closing. We got a couple minutes left. I mean, knowRX, again, it says they're on the site, and those of you listening can go to knowrxhealth.com. We're going to link everything at the end of the show where you can reach out to David, his team, have a look at what they're doing, watch some of the videos, read some of the content, you guys. It's some pretty deep stuff. It's very techy. David's a nerd. I'm going to say that to him affectionately. He's very smart, but he's done a better job than I think most in trying to unpack it. A lot of this information's intended for industry, so it's very B2B, but the OWL app is as clear as crystal on what it does. But they are providing smart, inclusive health research. This is very, I'm going to throw in the term, it is decentralized. It is very much feels like it's for the people. And something I'm not seeing today. I'm sure there's a lot of folks out there in your space. There's competition, there's new technology, but I would definitely vote to see this in the hands of everybody around me. David, in the closing, man, what else is going on? You mentioned Techstars. That's really cool. You're in Boston. You're based in Austin, Texas. What's coming up for you between now and Christmas? What's going on with knowRX and David and the team?
Yeah, we're actually up for a digital health award.
Awesome,
it
man.
held 2.0 in Vegas.
Okay.
So that's very exciting. Last week, I was also recognized as a top 100 CEO in the clinical trial space. So we just continue to evolve. What's really important to us, and I go back to what the Navy instilled in me, is service to the community, right?
Awesome.
In the community at whole, but community where we live as well. Very philanthropic in nature, giving back. Even on my invoices to large pharmaceutical companies, I tell them, I'm donating this much to this nonprofit in this community. Do you want to match me? Here again, engagement is about giving into a community. Recruitment's about pulling from the community. So we're very community, people focused, and empowering them for their health journey.
I love it. Engagement, giving back to the community. Again, David Franklin, he's founder and CEO of knowRX, and as he's continuing to highlight there's so many other stories we could tell here about your veteran status. David is the picturesque, story of veteran turned technologist, father, Austin, Texas tech startup, and he's doing so many things in the space. David, it's awesome to have you on. The show's designed to give everyone a taste, my friend. So I know we can't get into every little bit, but it's a pleasure to have you on the show. And we look forward to seeing all the amazing things you're doing, man. Have a great one. Thanks again.
All right. Take care, Drew.